Average Woodsman here, back with another video. So today I wanted to go over 10 of the top 10 bushcraft items for beginners. So these are items that you should be carrying with you. These are the top 10 items that you should be purchasing and then carrying with you, or at least consider purchasing and carrying with you when you're building your bushcraft kit and carrying it into the woods so you could start practicing and learning more about bushcraft. So I'm out here today in the woods. It's nice and cool out finally. We got some nice weather. This morning it's about 42 or 43 degrees with a field temperature of about 37, so it's nice and cool. A lot better than it's been. We've been getting weather in like the mid to high 80s every single day. So every time, for some reason, there's a weather change, it just always destroys my allergies. So if you guys hear me, if you guys see my eyes watering, if you hear me sneezing, any of those types of things, runny nose, this always happens anytime there's a temperature change. So I'll break everything out, I'll lay everything out and go item by item for you guys. And then I have, if you guys stick around to the end, I have a couple extra like bonus items that I think you should also put in your kit, especially if you're building a bushcraft kit for the first time. All right, so the first one I want to talk about is going to be your belt knife, so your main cutting tool. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You could buy something like a Mora. Even if you wanted to go full tang, you could buy something like a Mora Garberg. You know, you don't have to go really expensive. It doesn't have to be a $200 or $300 semi-custom, handmade bushcraft knife or anything like that. Personally, I would focus the majority of your money. So if, say, you have a budget of $500, I would spend the majority of it on your knife, because your knife is going to be your main cutting tool. It's what you're going to rely on the most. It's what you're going to do the vast majority of your tasks with, whether that be carving around camp, whether that be skinning or butchering animals if you're out hunting, while you're out bushcrafting. It's going to be your main tool that you're going to use the most when you're out in the woods. So you're going to be doing all of your fine carving with it. You're going to be making your fires. You're going to be making feather sticks. You're going to be carving spoons and things like that. You're going to be doing a lot with this blade, so you want to make sure that you go out and buy a good high quality one. Like I said, doesn't have to be a Battle Horse Knives or a LT Wright or any other really expensive blade. It just needs to be a high quality one. So like I said, Mora. You could get something like a Bushcraft Black. It's not a full tang knife, but it is a fixed blade knife. It's very durable. Don't let anyone tell you anything otherwise. I've seen them in classes all over the country, used and abused, and I've never seen one of them break. They're quality knives. So if you don't want to spend $200 or $300 on a really high-end or a semi-custom bushcraft knife, you could buy something like that. Probably my favorite of all of the less expensive blades is the ESEE RB3. It's a 1095. It has a Scandi grind. It has a good 90-degree spine on it. It comes with a good quality leather sheath. They make aftermarket Kydex sheets if you want to buy one of those, and it's right around the $100 range, maybe a little bit more than $100. So that's a good option. But a good fixed blade knife, preferably full tang, because remember, this is going to be your main cutting tool. But good fixed blade knife, Scandi grind. You want a Scandi grind for bushcraft because you're mainly going to be doing carving with this. But what I've found over the years, and I've shown it in plenty of videos, you can do a lot with a Scandi grind. People say that this is only good for carving. That's not true. I've carved with these. I've made all different types of things off the landscape. I've butchered, used these as camp knives, skinned out deers, hogs, rabbits, snakes. I mean, anything you can imagine, squirrel, all those types of things with Scandi grind. I prefer a Scandi, but especially if you're focusing on bushcraft, you want to have a good Scandi because you're going to be using this mainly for carving and making things off the land. So you're crafting things off the landscape. So having a Scandi grind is going to be important. All right, we're sticking with tools. the first few items I'm going to show you guys are all going to be cutting tools, because bushcraft is about going out with less and crafting what you need or what you want to do off the landscape. So you're going to be making things out in the woods. So with having a good fixed blade, carrying a good axe or hatchet is important as well. This one is from Bushcraft. This was sent to me for testing, I don't know, a couple of years ago. I still use it on a regular basis. It's a good, solid, small axe that's very packable. I carry this with me all the time, especially this time of year when it's a little bit cooler. I can split wood with this. I can chop down small saplings with this. I can do a lot of fine carving with this. I can choke up and do carving with this. It's just a nice tool to have, especially when you're out in the woods and you're spending a lot of time crafting things off the landscape, making spoons, making bowls, making maybe you're practicing primitive trapping. It could be any type of thing that you're doing that you would making tripods, making bipods, camp cooking, all those types of things. All right, once again, sticking with the tools. This is going to be somewhat tool heavy, because when you're talking about bushcraft, it's all about the tools you're carrying on you. So another one, a good, high quality folding saw. This so happens to be a Silky Gomboy. This is the Outback edition. This is my favorite saw that I own. I have a bunch of Silkies. I have a Pocket Boy, a Gomboy. I have a Big Boy. I have a Katana Boy. I also have my original Baco Laplander that I bought, 14 or 15 years ago, or however long it was, that I still have and I still use. It stays in my bushcraft tool roll a lot because it's an excellent crafting saw. It's very, very durable. The thing with a Silky is, in general, I think it's more, first off, it cuts a lot better, it cuts a lot faster. Second, it's a more versatile, more multifunctional tool, because this is made out of carbon steel. So if I had to, and once again, when you're out in the woods, you're practicing your skills as a bushcrafter. So maybe you want to make a fire using flint and steel. I can strike the back of this with a piece of flint or a piece of chert, and I can strike this into my charred material, and now this is a multifunctional because I can use this for firecraft. So having a good tool like this is really important. Also, something like a saw is a lot safer. It's a lot more calorie efficient to use. So having a good folding saw is, I think, one of the most important items you should carry when you're out in the woods, especially if you're a beginner. This is a far safer and a far more calorie efficient tool than something like an axe or a hatchet, or even a big knife like a machete or a kukri or something like that. You're not swinging anything. You're not using up a lot of calories. All you're doing with this is just bucking wood and crafting things, and it's just a really good tool to have. All right, the next one is going to be something to carry water in, boil water in, and cook in. It doesn't have to be a pot or something really big. You can have just something as simple as a good canteen and cup. I prefer to carry something that's metal. So stainless steel is generally my go-to, because remember, I'm not carrying a lot of items with me when I'm out bushcrafting. I'm just carrying a few items in my kit, so it doesn't matter if something weighs a little bit more, because this is more robust, and I know that I'm never going to break this. I'm never going to damage this. If I'm carrying something like a plastic bottle, like a Nalgene, which I have Nalgenes and I use them, they're good, but this I can boil water in. I can take this off once it's empty. I can take this off. I can put this over top. Now I can make char cloth, or I can char material like punk woods and things like that. I can use this over the fire. I can boil water in this, dump it into my canteen, so now I can continuously hydrate myself. I can also cook in this. There's just so many things that I can do. I can be boiling water in this, cooking in this. It's just so multifunctional, and you can do so much with just these two items that it makes sense to carry them. And it doesn't have to be stainless steel. It can be titanium. It can even be aluminum. Just make sure they're metal, and I prefer both of them to be metal. That's just my opinion. From the years that I've spent out in the woods, I just find that having both of them being metal is more useful and more multifunctional. All right, so talking about fire, I recommend when you're talking about bushcraft, not necessarily survival kits, when you're talking about building a bushcraft kit, especially as a beginner, you should carry a ferro rod. If I was building a survival kit for a beginner, I would throw something like a Bic lighter in there or some stormproof matches, because it's a totally different kit. When you're talking about bushcraft, you're going out into the woods to practice your skills and live more minimalistically in a camp setting and build things. So learning and knowing how to correctly use a ferro rod is going to be more advantageous for someone who is first getting into bushcraft. So you can have a big heavy-duty ferro rod like this one. This one is I want to say like 7 or 8 inch ferro rod by 1/2 inch, massive ferro rod. You can also take a smaller, still heavy-duty, larger ferro rod in diameter and attach it to your knife sheath if you want to do that. Honestly, for someone who's a beginner, I would say that you should carry the biggest ferro rod that you can find, because the more surface area, when you're striking this, the more surface area you have, the more sparks, so you'll be able to ignite marginal tinder with. I just think it's better to carry a really big ferro rod, but if you want to carry a smaller one that still is pretty robust and larger in diameter, so you can get a lot of strikes out of it on your sheath, that's fine. But having a ferro rod is important, especially when you're first getting into bushcraft, because you need to understand this. This is a tool just like anything else. All right, let's get into shelter. So once again, if this was an emergency survival kit I was building for someone who's a beginner, I would recommend something like a Mylar space blanket, one of the reusable ones like the grabber. But when you're talking about bushcraft, you're talking about minimalistic. So you could go with something like a tarp, like a silk nylon tarp, like a nylon tarp. Or honestly, I think the best bet for most people would be to go with something like a military style poncho, especially when you're first getting into it, because this is a multifunctional item that you can carry with you. I could use this for rain gear. I can use this to set up a bunch of different types of shelters because it does have grommets on it. It's an excellent piece of kit that doesn't weigh anything. It doesn't take up much room. And in here, I have my rapid ridgeline. I have stakes in here, aluminum stakes. Everything is in it. This is like a self-contained shelter kit that I can carry with me that's more multifunctional than just carrying a tarp. Now, if you want to go with something more traditional, you can go with a wax canvas or an oilcloth tarp. I have that type of a tarp, and you guys have seen it in videos. I use it a lot, but it's a lot heavier, it's a lot bulkier, and a lot of people are not going to want to carry that in their kit. So I would recommend starting, especially since those, a good like oilcloth tarp, you're talking $200 to $300. When you're talking about something like this, it's like 50 or 60 bucks. I don't remember exactly how much I paid for this, but because I've had it for a long time, but I don't think it's very much still. I'll put a link to it down in the description. But something like this would be good for someone who's a beginner, and then you could always upgrade eventually to something like an oilcloth tarp later on if you want to. So cordage. You can carry something. I would recommend, if you're only going to carry one cordage, I would recommend carrying bank line. This is actually the one that I had rolled up in my pocket. I would recommend carrying bank line. It's the most versatile cordage in my opinion. But if you want to, I generally carry two types of cordage. I generally carry bank line, and then I'll carry my rapid ridge line, which is already set up so I can set up my tarp. And if I have to set it up quickly, I can do it really fast. And now I am out of the weather, and I don't have to worry about getting wet. Also, if you want to, you can always carry more of a natural type of cordage, like jute twine or something like that. You know, this is multifunctional. This is very multifunctional. This is more of a very specific type of cordage. I'm not really a big paracord guy. I only carry paracord specifically for my ridgeline, and then I carry bank line as my utility cord for everything else. But I do sometimes carry traditional cordage like this. But whatever you want to buy, just make sure you buy enough of it and carry it with you, because you're going to be doing a lot of things. There's a lot of things that you're going to be doing with cordage when you're out in the woods, especially if you're practicing bushcraft. All right, so another tool, having a good pocket folding knife with you, whether that be something like an SAK like this, which has a good locking blade on it. I have a saw that I can use for crafting. It has an awl on it, so I can use that also for making things. It has a lot of tools on here. This has scissors. Scissors are super underrated when you're out in the woods, in my opinion. I've talked about this on tons of videos. So having a tool like this is important. You can go with just a more traditional style folding knife if you want to. You can go with a multi-tool like a Leatherman instead of this. I like both Leatherman and I like Victorinox. I carry both of them. I just alternate what I feel like carrying that day. One thing good about a Victorinox is you have the toothpick and the super underrated tweezers. Especially if you spend a lot of time out in the woods, you're going to be getting ticks and things like that, thorns, all kinds of stuff in your skin, on you. So having those is important, and having a good folding knife on you, I think, is also important. This one is kind of an all-encompassing, so having a way to navigate when you're out in the woods, especially if you're going to be spending a lot of time out in the woods, you're going to be doing probably longer hikes. Maybe you're going to do some overlanding, and you're going to go to an area and bushcraft and practice your skills, make a camp, all those types of things. So having a map and a compass, I prefer a traditional compass. I have GPS obviously on my phone, but a lot of times I'm in areas where I don't have any reception. This is the Soon2 MC2. You have a lot on this compass. So you have a mirror, so this could be used for signaling in an emergency. You can also use this for hygiene. You know, make sure that you don't have, if you have any cuts or scrapes, you can check yourself for ticks. You also have a magnifying glass if you want to use this for fire. It's just a very useful tool to have. You're going to need to learn how to use this, so I would recommend watching videos on YouTube, maybe taking classes. I've taken some classes on land navigation. It's important to know, especially if you're going to rely on it. Also, having a map and some Write in the Rain notepads. I have my map cards here, so this helps with orienteering off the landscape when you're talking about something like a topo map. I also have a lot of stuff in here like my pace count, things like that I've written down over the years. So having a good nav kit on you, I think, is really important, and it's one of the things that you should learn how to do, and it's a good thing for beginners to get into. That way you can learn, and you'll be able to, honestly, it's a very underrated skill. Also, if you want to carry some pace beads with you, you can do that too. But having a nav kit, I think, is important. And the last of the 10 items that I think a beginner should have, the 10 bushcraft items that beginner should have, is going to be a good flashlight or headlamp. Probably, I would say, I would say preferably carrying a headlamp over a flashlight, a pocket flashlight, is going to be your best bet. It just so happened that this was the flashlight I was carrying today in my pocket on me. I don't always carry a headlamp. Most of the time I do. A lot of times I'll carry flashlights that have the ability to attach to my ball cap, because I'm generally wearing a hat, and it makes it just more multifunctional. But having a good flashlight and or headlamp, if you want to have both, a flashlight in your pocket and a headlamp in your kit, in your backpack, that's totally fine. But having a good candling device is important. Told you guys I'd throw a couple of extras in here, a couple bonus items. A good first aid kit, I think, is critical to have in there. A tourniquet, hemostatic gauze. I got a couple of chem lights on here, some trauma shears, all that kind of stuff. It's good to have a good first aid kit with you, especially when you're going to be using things like axes, hatchets, machetes, kukris, saws, your knife. You can always cut yourself or injure yourself, so having the ability to self-aid is important. Also, super underrated item that I don't see a lot of people carrying in their kit: gloves. A good pair of heavy-duty leather work gloves. They don't have to be expensive. I bought these ones on Amazon like, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago. They've been beat up and loved on. Still holding up strong. I want to say I paid around 15 or 20 bucks for them. Keep your hands, especially if you're doing a lot, you're grabbing firewood, you're in and around briars or brambles, you're doing things where you're handling material that you're going to possibly injure yourself with. Having a good set of gloves is important. And then some sort of a larger pot. This is an inexpensive one that I bought off of Amazon a couple of months ago. It's been used and abused a bunch. It's holding up really well. It's from a company called Fire Maple. I have a bunch of bush pot style containers like this. I have the one from Dave Canterbury from Self-Reliance Outfitters. I have the old MSR Seagull that I've had for probably, I don't know, 10 or 15 years. And then I have this one also. They all work really well, but this is something you could also carry in your kit, especially if you're staying out for a longer period of time. This allows you a larger container to boil water in, to make food in, if you want to make medicine in. You can also pack this full of items, which I have a bunch of stuff in here, food items that I can make while I'm out in the woods. And now this is even more multifunctional because it's carrying the food for the day if I want to stop and make lunch. So these are some extra items that I threw in here as like bonus items if you want, as someone new to bushcraft, if you want to, throw these items in your kit, you can do that too. Sorry guys if there's a lot of noise out here. It's really, really windy today. Another thing that I almost forgot to mention, if you want to carry another bonus item, if you want to carry some sort of cotton material like a shamag, like I have here, it's a super multifunctional item. You can carry a bandana, you can carry a sniper's veil. I carry a sniper's veil a lot here in Florida because it's just generally more useful, in my opinion, especially when you live in a hot, humid climate like this. But on the cooler, sometimes I'll carry both, or especially during the cooler months, if I want to keep my neck warm, my face warm, my ears warm, I can always carry something like a shamag. And I was able to lay the shamag out and present all the items on it. So, cotton material. That's kind of it, guys, for the video. Remember to like, subscribe, share these videos with your friends and family. Be safe, stay dangerous, and I'll catch you in the next one.